Thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Outside the Shop with me, your host, Daryl D. Lane. As always, I want to thank you all for tuning in, whether it be via YouTube live stream, Facebook Live, and Twitter/Periscope. And in this program, I get to talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about on my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you guys can all find on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm going to have a great show for you guys today. Going to have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Before we get to any of that, check out the link below. It's my top 18 linebackers in this upcoming 2021 NFL draft. It's about 10 days from now. If you want to check out the, I'm forgetting his name. I don't want to butcher it right now, but the Notre Dame linebacker. You have Micah Parsons out of Penn State. My mom went there, and my aunt, by the way. Also, there's a Xavier Collins. He's from Tulsa. Dylan Moses, linebacker out of Alabama. A lot of decent linebackers in this class. There's about 10 linebackers that I like that I think can be productive. And a guy from Buffalo, Isaiah McDuffie. He played at Bennett, I think. He went to Boston College, and he's coming out too. So interesting linebacker class. Check out the article I recommended. So here's what we got today. So Jake Paul, Ben Askren fight fallout. Trevor Lawrence, he made some comments that were talked about, I believe, Friday night after I did the podcast. In terms of how much football means to them. He kind of talked about that a little bit in the tweets. Also, what we have is Boston Celtics. They offer Brad Stevens a huge, the Indiana basketball offers Brad Stevens a huge deal. Alex Smith retires from football. There's going to be this new Super Soccer League going on. So we got lots to talk about. First, let's start with this. Ben Askren versus Jake Paul. First of all, congratulations to Jake Paul. He won me $40. My man Silas Garrison, friend of the show, will have to pay me $40. I'm just racking up money. The fight did really well. 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. Here's the one thing I want to say. Jake Paul has followed the Floyd Mayweather model. And by the Floyd Mayweather model, I mean that people pay to see him lose. And by the way, if anybody did not illegally stream this fight, you guys are all corny. To watch that knockout. Ben Askren came in there looking fat and out of shape. He had the dad bod, looking like a 50-year-old dad that hasn't worked out a day in his damn life. Definitely not great. Definitely not great. But what Jake Paul has done is he's followed the Floyd Mayweather model. And by the Floyd Mayweather model, what I mean is this. You fight people who you can beat. For example, Jake Paul. He fights Nate Robinson. He fights Ben Askren, who's one of the worst strikers in the UFC, who's a wrestler, right? Olympic qualifier for wrestling, 2-time Division I national champion for wrestling. And you fight those guys because you can beat them. He kind of does the Floyd thing. Build intrigue. Okay, we beat this NBA athlete. Now let's go to a UFC fighter, but people don't really realize the UFC fighter is not really a boxer. And it's all building up to the big fight against Conor McGregor. And as Conor McGregor ages, maybe he'll take some more loss in the UFC. The chance for Paul to take him out increases. And this is the Floyd Mayweather model. It makes a lot of money. People don't like Jake Paul, but I'll tell you this, man. He's a real boxer. Jake Paul can box. Jake Paul can put some hands on you now. Like, Jake Paul can box. Whether you love him or hate him, you like the YouTube videos, you like the flamboyance, Jake Paul can box. And he's had 2 knockouts, and Jake Paul's looking good. And like Snoop Dogg said, that's a bad, bad man. So more Deshaun Watson news. Him and his lawyer came out, and they kind of took all the women who has accused Deshaun Watson of sexual assault to task. This is what they said. So they said 3 plaintiffs lied about the number of sessions they actually had with Mr. Watson. 3 plaintiffs lied about the alleged trauma resulting in harm. 5 plaintiffs told others they wanted to get money out of Mr. Watson. 5 plaintiffs have scrubbed or entirely deleted their social media accounts. 7 plaintiffs willingly offered to work with Mr. Watson after their alleged incidences. After massage therapy sessions with Mr. Watson, 8 plaintiffs begged about, praised, were excited about the massages. They were excited about the massages. So they kind of bring in all that information, setting new light as now they have the identities. Deshaun kind of knows actually who these women are. I think this case is going to get a lot more interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Deshaun Watson. So Trevor Lawrence, he was in an essay article, and during that essay article, he stated that, there's more to life than football. Him and his girlfriend, and now his wife, actually, they just got married. Congratulations, Trevor Lawrence. She's more competitive than him. Former coach, and I think his dad said he could walk away from football and be fine. Not great. Then Trevor Lawrence tweets out, "I love football. I'm very committed to the process." All that, right? Coach speak that you need to say when you kind of say some comments that you shouldn't have been saying. But I will say this about Trevor Lawrence. I think there is the fear that he could Andrew Luck this whole thing and end up retiring from football. You do not want that, right? You do not want Trevor Lawrence deciding, hey, there's more to life than football. Retires about 8 years in his career. The franchise left holding the bag. That's not what you want. So I think they're going to have to vet. They're going to have to vet, right? My good friend Ben Kieran, host of the Sports Quality podcast, he said a couple times that he thinks Trevor Lawrence is a little bit too lackadaisical. He wishes there was more fire, there was more passion. But, I think there are some concerns about Trevor Lawrence in terms of that. And if there is a concern, you want to know, like, how driven is your franchise quarterback? Like, you got to look at a lot of people, successful people in life. They don't have a great work-life balance. Like, Michael Jordan, psycho-competitor. Even look at LeBron James, how he spends time with his body. Like, the stuff he goes. Like, LeBron's kind of crazy. Kobe Bryant. Kobe was freaking crazy. Like, it's hard to do that. It's hard to be great. Tom Brady, you still feel some type of way. Like, you have to kind of have something that drives you, I think, especially to do sports like at a high level, at a competitive industry where new people come in every year that are super good, super athletic, just keep evolving. All the training, all the avenues that people have to get better. You got to be a little bit psycho. You got to be a little out there. Just a tad bit. Just a tad bit. So Alex Smith announces he is retiring. First of all, what a great career for Alex Smith. Not the Hall of Fame career, not the Super Bowl winning career, but what a hell of a dude. Alex Smith should be a coach. He should be a coach. He should be a QB coach or an offensive coordinator, maybe coach kids, maybe coach at the high school level, college football level. Because I'll tell you this, 49ers, drafted number 1 overall. Aaron Rodgers ends up being drafted 25, I believe. Struggles. Jim Harbaugh gets there, kind of rises from the dead and has a really good second half of his career with the Niners. Then Colin Kaepernick comes in and takes his job. And all he does is support Colin Kaepernick. Then this guy goes to the Chiefs. He has a lot of success with Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Then they draft Patrick Mahomes. And he does nothing but mentor and help Patrick Mahomes mature and grow to be ready to be the Patrick Mahomes that we saw now. The Patrick Mahomes that won an MVP a couple of years ago as a first-year starter. Alex Smith had a lot of damn stuff to do about that. Then he goes to Washington. He has the injury. And then if you notice last year during the Thanksgiving game, this past year during the Thanksgiving game, when Dwayne Haskins was the backup, and Dwayne Haskins was the first-round pick, he's patting Alex Smith on the shoulder. He's going to pumped up for Alex Smith. That just shows you what kind of guy Alex Smith is. He's a quarterback mentor. He's almost like a life coach. He's a great dude from all accounts. QB or offensive coordinator, QB coach, offensive coordinator, college football head coach. Get this guy around people to get in their minds and help develop the mind, man. Like, I have all the respect for Alex Smith in the world. Great career, great man, great guy. All the respect to you, man. The Gonzaga Bulldogs. See, my good friend Ben Kieran, host of the Sports Quality podcast. You guys should check out his podcast. He always comes to my podcast and he talks about why he hates the little guys. He hates the non-Power 5 schools. He didn't have faith in the Gonzaga. And what Gonzaga just did is they picked up Chet Holgerman, who was the number 1 high school basketball recruit in the class of 2021. He's the projected number 1 overall pick in next year's NBA draft. And not only that, they had Jalen Suggs, who is going to be the second pick in this upcoming NBA draft to the guy from Oklahoma State. I'm forgetting his name, Kate Cunningham, right? So when you think of all that and put that in perspective, Gonzaga is a real basketball program. Like, this isn't your cute little mid-major, right? Like, they're freaking legit. They have dudes that are getting drafted 1 and 2 overall. They have number 1 overall prospects. High school kids coming. Like, so I think we need to start looking at Gonzaga differently. They are the Kentucky. They are the Duke. They're on that level. The Kansas is like, this isn't just some average run-of-the-mill program that's in the mid-majors. This isn't a Loyola Chicago or a Butler or a VCU or a Wichita State. This is something grander. This is something greater. This is something bigger. So I think it's always important to remember that. So Brad Stevens, head coach of the Boston Celtics, he was offered a 7-year, $70 million deal by Indiana. Now, he's an Indiana guy. Turned it down because his point of view was that the Boston Celtics top 5 job in the NBA. It's better than any college basketball job, so why would he take it? I think this looks bad for Indiana, that the hometown guy won't take it. He probably grew up wanting to be the head coach of Indiana. The fact that he paid them all that money and he won't take it, I think that kind of says something about the program. Also, I think this also says that there's been a lot of talk about maybe Brad Stevens getting fired. The Boston Celtics, they've underachieved this year. I think Brad Stevens is going to be around for a couple more years. I think he's got a little bit of commitment from Danny Ainge, the GM and the Boston Celtics owner, that he's going to be able to be around and kind of grow this thing out with both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Now we get to this. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. So Kevin Durant was on a podcast, and when he was on the podcast, they asked him to name his top 5 players he's ever played with. The top 5 players he's ever played with. Okay, so here's who was on the list: Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, and this is how he said it, and Serge Ibaka. Now, obviously, the guy he's forgetting is Russell Westbrook, who was a league MVP, multiple triple-double crown, great player, one of the most exciting players I've ever watched play the game of basketball. The guy that he went to multiple Western Conference finals with, right? And when we look at this, I think it's interesting. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook don't like each other. I think a lot of the times when you mention the best player he's ever played with, he never mentions Russell Westbrook. I think when Kevin Durant always talks about playing the right way, motion offense, having fun, none of that stuff was really with Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook's not his type of guy. He's in like Kyrie Irving's, all these philosophical guys, James. Kyrie's like, I have the ball, get the F out of my way. It's not going to be super efficient. And Kevin's like, what the F, what the F, what the F? So I could see how they both don't vibe with each other. It's sad to see. I think they both need to realize how special they were and how special those Oklahoma City teams were in the mid-2010s. And lastly, so a Super League is going to be announced with soccer in Europe. Here are the teams you're going to have. AC Milan, Arsenal, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Chelsea, Inter, Milan, Juventus, Liverpool, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing these names wrong, Manchester City, Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Tottenham Hotspur. These are kind of like the top soccer teams in the world in the different respective leagues, and they're all forward Super Conference. I think this is really good. Really good, and honestly, I think I'm probably going to watch soccer more to see how this turns out. But I think it's really cool when you have the name brands like the BC Barcelonas, the Manchester Uniteds, Manchester City, the Real Madrids, and they're all going at each other. Like, I think that's kind of cool. And I think it's a really smart idea to increase competition. So that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop. Share this program however you're listening to it. Also, check out the podcast on Barbershop Sports Talk, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Wherever you listen to your podcast, I have my good friend Scotty Johnson on, and we did our NBA tiers all time this time. So players all time who can be the best player on a championship team, players all time who can be the second best player on a championship team, and players all time who can be the third best player on a championship team. There's a lot of debate, a lot of discussion, a lot of great conversation. Check that podcast